The referral trap is the biggest problem of most consultants or anybody selling high-ticket services to other businesses. How do you escape it, and how can you create the first embryonic version of a client acquisition system for your consulting business? This is what we're going to be talking about in today's video. But before we start, I have to warn you that you may hear things that you already have heard, but about things that you're currently not doing. Because if you were, you wouldn't have clicked on a video that talks about the referral trap and how to get out of it. So when you hear those things that you've already heard and are tempted to think like, oh yeah, this is old stuff, I've already heard that, then think about why haven't you done these things yet? And if you're mainly looking for novelty and new information rather than time-tested principles and things that, are just good practice, what does it say about you and your business and the likelihood that you will be successful with it? Success is mainly about A, doing the things that are boring over and over again, and B, fully knowing that most people will reject you and being okay with that. And the thing that keeps most people outside of the success zone is that they are unwilling to be bored and not willing to be rejected. Another caveat I have to throw out there is that when I talk about the referral trap in business, referrals are of course the holy grail of business. If you can get people to talk about you in such high notes that it regularly books a lot of sales calls for you, well, that is a wonderful place to be. Super high trust combined with an unlimited amount of leads coming your way. That's as close as it gets to business nirvana. And that for sure isn't a trap. However, the problem is when this happens only occasionally, when those referrals only come a handful of times every year and they are your only source of leads. That's when referrals are a trap. Because if you just get enough to put you in a relative comfort zone financially, then you become extremely vulnerable to any kind of changes, economic climate changing or your market's tastes slightly shifting, and you're going to be out of referrals. And then if your referrals dry up, your business dries up, and it's really difficult to build client acquisition systems when you truly need them. You want to till the field well before you are hungry. My name is Michael Bohannes, and unlike many other people in this space, I can happily tell you that I do have something to sell to you. We help consultants build client acquisition systems without spending a lot of money on ads. We do it both on a done-for-you basis as an agency and also on a coaching basis where there's a lot of one-on-one hand-holding happening. So it's not like you're going to be dumped into a video portal and made to figure everything out on your own. So that's what we sell, and I want to be transparent about it. But if you don't want that or you don't need that, that's perfectly fine. I create these videos for as many people as possible so that I can give value for free. And that's because that way you develop an affinity for me so that if and when the time comes where you do need help with your client acquisition systems, you are a little bit more likely to reach out to me versus to somebody else. You're also a little bit more likely to refer me to somebody who you know who is struggling with the topic of client acquisition and who is a solo consultant or leads a small consulting firm. So that's why I create these videos, and it's a well-known mechanism, and I wanted to be, first of all, transparent about it. But also this method is actually one of the ways that you can use to escape the referral trap. Create content so that people build an affinity with you and gradually over time become your clients. However, it is not the most important mechanism, and we're going to get to that. But it's only one of the four steps we will be discussing, and it's not even the most important one. So keep listening. Moving a business from referral-based to a business that is based on client acquisition systems, especially scalable ones, is a big step. Don't underestimate that. Often it comes hand in hand with you having to narrow your positioning down quite a bit. You used to sell a thing or a mix of things, but now that you're proactively approaching your market and trying to sell them something repeatable, somehow the main thing that you used to sell doesn't resonate with people anymore. It takes tweaking and adjusting. Perfect example. When I was still referral-based, I was doing a lot of different things. Writing white papers for B2B companies, doing LinkedIn marketing for them, publishing their newsletters, and so on. At some point, I was also creating hardcover books for my clients. And the people I was working with were extremely far-ranging. I was working with pre-revenue businesses as well as $100 million clients. And I even edited a textbook for 2 university professors. So that was as broad as it gets. But to build a multi-six-figure business, I had to narrow my focus away from all of these different services and personas and down to a more standardized offer to a more narrow audience. In my case, solo consultants and owner of small consulting firms. And I already see how next year I'm going to have to narrow my focus even more. And only when I'm at, let's say, anywhere from 3 to 5, maybe $10 million, then I can go broad again and be a one-stop shop for all things B2B marketing for my clients. But before I get there, the process of moving from a referral-based business to a client acquisition systems-based business is one of narrowing your scope and narrowing your personas that you work with. Now, if you're among the 1 to 2% of consultants in the world, you're among the best of the best, or you are extremely well connected, or you have long-term retainer deals locked in, The referral trap can be an actually wonderful place to be. People like that never have any revenue problems. And because of that, they don't need to put any client acquisition systems in place. I mean, if they did, they would be able to scale their business much faster and also hire employees and just build a real business rather than staying solopreneurs. But that's another topic for another day. Here, I'm talking about the remaining 98 to 99% of the market of solo consultants and small consulting firms, all of whom tend to be in the referral trap one way or another. They make a decent living, but they know they have a potential for more. And very often there are moments, when a couple of months, not a lot is coming in and they start to get a little bit worried. And I used to be in the referral trap myself before starting to take client acquisition systems seriously. I was well connected in the London startup scene, and that for 2 years floated my business quite nicely, or at least enough for me not to starve. So how did I get out of the referral trap? Well, it took me far too long to get out of it, but if I could now be talking to my 4-year younger self, this is what I would be telling to this hopeful young man. The recipe is actually quite simple, but it's not easy, because what I'm going to tell you, only about 5% of consultants are going to take action on it. And if you do, then you have a huge leg up. Okay, enough with the introductory remarks. Let's get into it. These are the 4 steps that have helped me to get out of the referral trap, and they can help you too. Step number 1, start approaching prospective clients one by one. And I know you're probably rolling your eyes at this. I get this reaction very often when I talk to people. They say how tedious it is to do outbound prospecting. And when I hear this, I always ask, well, what is your alternative? I mean, seriously, there are only 4 ways to get B2B clients: referrals, content, paid ads, and outbound, which can be cold calls or cold email, any kind of cold messaging. That's it. There's nothing else. Referrals is a thing we're trying to escape. Content takes a long time to see any results. And paid ads, well, you better be willing to invest 20 to 30K up front before you see any results. So if you have that kind of money, please go ahead. In comparison, outbound is practically free and it shows results virtually instantly. Like you can literally have sales calls booked for tomorrow. So please roll your eyes to the front again. And let's keep going. Yes, it does eat up a lot of time, but the goal is not that you'll be doing this forever. The goal is that you build these systems first, try them yourself, see that they work, and then hand them over to somebody else. After I had figured out how to do conversational prospecting, I hired an appointment setter. After I figured out how to do cold email, I have 2 VAs who are now sending cold emails on my behalf. You might ask, why not hire these people right away? Well, that could be costly because every market has its own unique dynamics. And if you just hire somebody who maybe has an experience in their particular tactic, but they don't know your market intimately well, just like you do, they might be struggling for a long time before they hit the winning formula. And that can cost money. So the process is always do it yourself, outsource what can be outsourced, scale that channel, and then move over to the next one. If you write semi-personalized cold emails, you can expect that about 3 to 5% of people, unless they are highly senior in big corporations, will respond positively. And about 0.5 to 2% will actually book a call. Just put enough reps and you will book sales calls. If you don't have much else going on, there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't be sending 50 personalized emails a day, or start approaching people on LinkedIn, or start cold calling. Whatever it is, you can do outbound. But if you do it, you're automatically in the top 5% of consultants, because almost everybody else finds some kind of excuse of why they cannot do it. So automatically you win. By the way, very important to note here that the level to which you personalize your outreach should be determined by 2 separate factors. Number 1, how many potential clients are there in the world for you? And number 2, what is your customer lifetime value? How high is your ticket price? The fewer potential clients there are in the world, the more you have to personalize so that you maximize the potential for the client responding. And you might have to use several channels at once. For example, when you have 5,000 potential clients in the world and your customer lifetime value is 20,000, you better send a 4 email cadence, connect with them on LinkedIn, and if you don't hear from them quickly thereafter, call them. In contrast, I easily have 1 million, maybe 2 million of potential clients in the world. So I can run a much more scalable and less personalized game. Whatever it is, you need to be doing outreach. And here's an insight that was truly life-changing for me. As long as you have a good offer and come across as a credible player, you don't need referrals or introductions or anything of that sort. I cannot tell you how many people have paid me a 4-figure amount on our very first call together. The shortest amount of time that somebody went from not knowing me, who I was at all, to being a fully paying client was 30 hours and 50 minutes. So you don't even need a low ticket entry offer. Once you discover that, the world opens up to you because you suddenly realize all you need is somebody who has a problem that you can help them solve. That's it. It's a very, very liberating insight. Okay, so that was step number 1, do outbound. Step number 2, create a coffee date offer. What is that? Well, just like you wouldn't start a potential romantic relationship by asking them to marry you, rather you would go on a coffee date first. You should not start a business relationship by asking for, paying you $100,000 for a big transformation project when they just met you. And I know that I just before said that you don't need a low ticket offer, and it's true, you don't need it, but your outbound approaches in step number 1 will be more successful if you have a low commitment offer. This matters a lot, especially if you are selling to corporate clients, where the employees who make the decisions on whether they work with you are a much more conservative and risk-averse bunch than the average business owner. Because look at it from their point of view. They are in a fairly comfortable position, and there you are, a stranger who wants their business. Even if you have something worthwhile to them, they are facing a huge risk that if they work with you and you turn out to be a useless muppet, they will be embarrassed and potentially fired. And they don't know that you are actually one of the good ones. So from their point of view, it's actually more likely that you are a useless muppet than that you're not. So you need to build trust. And that is what a good coffee date offer is for. Create a low ticket or even free offer that will considerably lower the risk of a prospect to engage with you. Some consultants struggle with the fact that their main service is a 5 or even 6-figure investment that they have a hard time getting complete strangers on the phone for because it's such a huge investment. For example, one of our clients is an innovation consultant. He helps brands improve their innovation management. That's a huge task. And it's extremely unlikely that you would hire a stranger you just met on LinkedIn to do such work for you that is really close to a company's sort of inner sanctum, right? It's like this is the source of the company's growth in the future. So you wouldn't just give that to somebody you just met. But if that stranger offered you a low commitment offer to help you with a, nagging problem that you keep having, well, that is definitely something that you can start with. And then once you've worked with that stranger for that short project, well, then potentially they can become candidates to do the big project. Here are a couple of ideas for coffee date offers. Number 1, a podcast interview. You can set up a podcast in under 1 hour. Just create a quick logo in Canva and give the podcast a name that potential heavy hitters in your industry wouldn't mind associating themselves with. For example, the Copywriting Mastery podcast with John Smith or the Engineering Excellence podcast. Do the first episode with somebody you know and then start reaching out to strangers and invite them on the podcast. Book recommendation here, read Content-Based Networking by James Carberry. Really good book. Coffee date offer number 2, free Q&A. If you have a lot of insider knowledge in your field of expertise, create a twice monthly or maybe even weekly Q&A session that you invite your target clients to, and you can help them solve their challenges for free. Coffee date idea number 3, a low ticket offer that your target client won't need to get budget approval for. Something that's usually part of their discretionary spending. Something for $2,000 to $3,000, right? Some kind of like, say, a one-day workshop or an assessment of their capabilities in the field of your expertise, that kind of stuff. So that was step number 2, create a coffee date offer. Don't go right into the relationship with a marriage proposal. Step number 3, to escape the referral trap, create some content regularly. Content is important as a tool for trust building. However, it's just completely overrated by most consultants who are starting out or at least trying to escape the referral trap. In reality, it should only play second fiddle. And that's for 2 reasons. First of all, if you haven't done much content before, you're starting literally at 0. If you already have some kind of followership, let's say on LinkedIn, and you haven't done much content, you are basically starting at 0. And that can take a lot of time before you get any traction with it. And second reason, if content isn't going to be the main trigger for you to book sales calls, you want to focus on the activity that is much more likely to book you sales calls. And the day only has 24 hours. So just focus your finite energy on the activity that is more likely to book you sales calls. And that, of course, would be outbound. Also, remember that earlier we said that going from referral-based to client acquisition systems-based is quite a different beast. So you need to validate your hypotheses of what will resonate with the market. And you want to do that quickly. The way to do it is through calls with prospective clients. And again, you will book many more calls via outbound than via content. But we should not neglect content completely because it is a great trust builder. As you reach out to people, for example, on LinkedIn, they will check you out. Many of them will. And so it's a good idea to, post the occasional tweet or put out a little bit of LinkedIn content, maybe one YouTube video every 2 weeks or something like that, just so that you have some repetitive presence so that they see that you're active, you're regularly posting, and you're engaging with people who talk to you. A small ancillary benefit of doing this will be that your existing network, especially on LinkedIn, will suddenly become much more aware of what it is that you do. they will see you more often in their newsfeed, and who knows, something good might come out of it. They will refer you. So in that case, we can harvest the occasional low-hanging fruit, but it's not the main source of prospects for us. We shouldn't be banking on this, so it's more of a nice to have. The important thing with content is that you do it as a matter of course. Like, this is part of your lifestyle now. This is what you do, because the trust building factor of content is important. You want people to see that you're producing content on a regular basis, that you know what you're talking about, and that you engage with the people who respond to you. So that was step number 3 to escape the referral trap. Do some content fairly regularly, but not too much. Step number 4, build mechanisms to improve your conversion rate. Breaking news, yes, it is more difficult to close somebody who you have just met, who you approached, versus somebody who comes as a referral. That's a no-brainer. There's practically zero trust between you, so it cannot hurt to have a really good coffee date offer and a couple of mechanisms that will help you to build trust more at scale as you are going through the sales cycle with your prospect. Because while ideally you'd want to close them on the first call, very often that won't be possible. And because you should never end a sales call without a specific next step, which ideally should be a follow-up call booked, even if it's just tentative, that next step will be the call. So you will want to schedule a follow-up call, because you don't want to end any sales call without a specific next step. And follow-up calls are usually the best one, even if they are just tentative. But there's a lot that you can do between those calls to build the trust between you and the prospect, and to do it at scale. And that is via conversion-oriented content. One thing that has doubled my conversion rate was that whenever I had to book a second call, I sent the prospect a cadence of anywhere from 3 to 5 emails between our sales calls where I anticipated their possible objection. Anything that I've heard that comes up as an obstacle, I've sent them an email about debunking that obstacle in advance. What are the most frequent objections that you get in your business? Figure that out and then create a content cadence, emails, maybe LinkedIn messages, where you can address every single one of those conversions as you're moving through the sales cycle. So those are the 4 steps that have helped me to get out of the referral trap. I hope they will help you too. Step number 1, start doing outbound. Step number 2, create a coffee date offer. Step number 3, create some content regularly. And step number 4, build mechanisms to gradually increase your closing rate. I hope this was useful. I see you in the next video.